Okay, everybody, I am here at RGL LAN over here in Philadelphia. We're here on day 2. Unfortunately, my good friend here, Loafe, is out of the competition as GlobalClan lost in a heartbreaking way against Witness Gaming on Gully Wash in the Decider map. But I have here the roamer, the guy who actually performed well at his very first event. I have Loafe from GlobalClan. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you? Feeling well rested?
I am still thinking about last night. I produced that match, and it was kind of just like I saw a different parallel timeline, alternate timeline. I mean, where you guys could have actually been in third, but I don't know if the lower bracket final would have been as competitive if you guys had won.
Well, it's in the past, so we'll never know. But it is heartbreaking. I mean, we all had the timeline where we could. Coming into LAN, our plan was to just try our best, and we all, of course, the goal is to win, even though if like cards are stacked against us. So we were trying everything we could to make it to the finals. So it's heartbreaking to lose in such a fashion, but you know, it's still fun, and I'm glad I got to experience it, even though probably the worst loss of my career.
Up until this date, that is.
Yeah, we'll never know.
And it's kind of crazy because I followed you. I don't know what you were up until Season 10, but you were with the Wild Rumpus, Math, Millie, and I forget the rest. Maybe Macron, too, at that time. In Season 10, what was it? Season 10, Kyle Fletch show where you won main as scout. And then you kind of came up the ranks, I would say. You were hovering around low invite. And then finally you got your first big break here on GlobalClan. And in your first season at, I would say, the highest level of invite, the top 4, you were able to make it to LAN, even though, you know, it was kind of a close competition early on. You had lost against GlobalClan Ice early on in the season, but you were somehow still able to pick it up. From what I understood, talking to Paul Dog, you guys had been trying to work with Sin Karma and the rest of the team to get everybody into a cohesive unit. What was that, you know, that transition period where, for those who don't know, GlobalClan originally had Crypt and Rakuso on Roamer and Flank Scout instead of Pablo and Loafe, and then they swapped them out for the Fireside Cup. So what was that early transition like, joining the team? You were originally on the Mafia, but then you got the call up to GlobalClan. What was that transition like, going from a low invite team to a top 4 LAN qualifiable team?
It was very interesting, and it was much more of a learning experience than I had expected because, like, all love to my past teams, but when you finally break into the upper echelon of TF2 and you're truly at a level where you can compete, there's so much more, like, preparation, and there's a lot more groundwork and, like, cohesiveness that goes into assembling a team and trying to form your, like, your strategy and your overall identity as a team and how you play. With a lot of like low burgeoning, like low invite teams, every player individually has to learn, and you have to learn how to operate as a unit at the highest level. But when I got to join that team with so many like grizzled veterans, it was interesting because apart from Pablo and I, everyone else had like a very concrete idea of how all that stuff functions. And besides just learning my role and trying to improve myself, I also had to pick up that stuff.
And when I talked to Paul Dog prior to the LAN, because up until that point, you had traded matches or blow for blow with every team. I think every match you had against all of the LAN competition, it was down to a 1-round differential. And you actually took a game off of Froyotech, 4-3 on Granary, I think week 6 or 5. For you, personally, we saw all the growth within the team. Sin Karma, from what I understood, was finally gelling in. And you guys had this plan coming into LAN, but then tragedy, I guess, would say, struck. Sin Karma couldn't come to LAN. For those who may not know, Sin Karma was originally supposed to be with this team going into LAN, but unfortunately, they had to replace him with Dingo. Did it feel like it was a roadblock for you guys, integrating Dingo within the team?
Well, I definitely would say so, because even though Dingo, very great player and a legend, he's a great player, but we do play a lot different, and that was a thing about forming identity as a team, is we do play a lot different than like the average like team would, and we had a lot of that functioning around how Sin Karma played and how like his tendencies as a player. So of course it's a roadblock, and we also had the issue where with that like tropical storm coming in from like the South Atlantic, like Dingo did not have power Monday and Tuesday of this week, so we basically only had 2 or 3 days to scrim with him. So it was very hard to gel, but it was all finally starting to come together against Bethnicz, and we were able to put on such a great showing because we finally started to understand each other so well.
And then for your first match, actually no, let's actually go back to the first day of LAN. That wasn't broadcasted. That was Friday when you guys were all scrimming against each other. I think you played against Froyotech, ? And then that was a complete smash from Froyotech. I was behind you guys actually watching the game. What were your initial impressions of the LAN competition, you know, from that scrim against Froyotech, and then your eventual first match against G6, which wasn't streamed? We covered the second map, but it was kind of a wash. But, like, would you call it a wake-up call, those first 2 matches where you got, well, the scrim and the first match, where you guys got slammed really hard?
Yeah, it was definitely tough. It was, after those first 2 matches, we kind of realized that with projectile classes like soldiers and demos becoming so strong with the low ping, we kind of had to change around how we played and like our priorities in a lot of fights. So once we had like a big team talk after like the tough loss to G6, we kind of had a different idea of like how we should go about fights, and we tried to apply it in the match. It definitely did work, but it was a big wake-up call because we were already in the lower bracket at that point.
Yeah, it was devastating to watch you guys kind of tumble to start off the LAN, but I think always that first match and the first scrims that you have on LAN is adjusting to that 5 ping versus when you play online, and there's inherent differences with like interp and all that good stuff. But then you came into the lower bracket, round 1 versus Bethnicz Gaming, and maps were Metalworks, Snakewater, and Gully Wash. Yeah, and we were actually watching that on the Fireside stream because we were able to get a stream going for that, and it kind of looked doom and gloom, I would say, because on Metalworks, it felt like you guys never got into a position where you could get stacks working into last, and there was never really scenarios where you guys could even get past the mid fights. Like I felt like when Jamon and Dan and I were watching it, you guys kind of just struggled to get any even ground, and if you did get any good stacks in a second, it kind of like that advantage negated pretty quickly. What were the struggles that you had on map 1, and then what was that kind of talk that you had coming into map 2? I know that Metalworks was Bethnicz's pick, right?
Yeah, it was. They had the upper bracket advantage from being a higher seed, but it was just tough because, of course, you still have to get used to things. On Metalworks, it was just very difficult to break into second because both teams were sending a lot of value into second to try and get that force and that like pressure off, and they definitely seemed a lot more assembled on that map. Like we were pretty chaotic on that map, and there was disagreements between our combo, so it was kind of stuff where we realized after we lost that map that it was kind of like our last chance if we wanted to make a run into like further into playoffs. So we tried to clean it up, like really just try and support each other and like let each other play to their strengths.
And then on Snakewater, I think you guys started off with a 2-0 or a 2-1 lead, and then for the longest time ever, up until Bethnicz got that second round, you guys were kind of just trading blow for blow. And then what really sealed the deal was that I think it was 2-2. You guys got a round reset on last. You guys had a really decisive mid-win. But I kind of want to go a little earlier into that match because on stream, I caught your little sink bomb on the catwalk on the skis. You hit him for 142, and then you had to get the air shot. I think he would have cratered regardless, but damn, bro, the Rockets were clean. And we were pointing out on the cast, too, after that match, you were top damaging on both Metalworks and Snakewater. Was the LAN jitters just not there for you at all? Like, it seemed like you were pretty acclimated well.
Yeah, there were kind of points during this, like, I was lasered in during the match, but during G6 and the scrims against Froyo, there were definitely moments where I would kind of just be staring at my screen and completely forget where I am, and then I'll take a look around and realize, like, I'm at the LAN venue. But once we got into map 2 against Snakewater, I realized, like, it's either this or, like, nothing. Like, I kind of was just lasered in the whole time, trying to get things done.
Being locked in, I wish I could do that on LAN. I haven't played on LAN for, like, 5 years now, so unfortunate for me. But after that, you guys won Snakewater off of that decisive mid-win into last. and then Gully Wash happened. You were up 1-0, and then Witness took 3 rounds straight right after. And one of the things that I found really interesting about that match was I think there was only 1 pause the entire time. Were you guys just not fans of taking tack pauses?
We're a team that really likes to take momentum whenever we can. We're a very aggressive team. So kind of getting those pauses and, like, letting the momentum come to a standstill. And, like, if it's there, it's, like, either team's for the taking. And we always want to keep that, so we kind of like to keep it moving.
And before we go into that final map, I kind of want to ask a question about playing with Dingo versus Sin Karma. Because Sin Karma, traditionally, we know him as a very aggressive demo man, somebody who likes to take risks. And early on in his invite career, he was very well known for that. And actually, from my earlier interview with Walrex, when I was reflecting with him on his career, he made a comment of how Sin needed to learn how to play to his limits, like test his limits in terms of his positioning and whatnot. So what was the difference between playing with him and then, like, you center around your team, and then what is it like playing with Dingo now, like coming into LAN with those 2 days of having no practice due to him losing power?
Well, I would say a lot of our team, once we started to gel, a lot of our team was structured around playing around Sin's decisiveness and, like, aggressiveness, because there were a lot of times where he would kind of just opt to do his own thing, like to do what he believed was best, and we always wanted to follow him because we want to play together as a unit, especially in matches. Like, if someone in our combo makes, like, a bad decision and they decide to take a fight, we always want to support them on the off chance that we can win that fight, because we're already going to be bleeding resources. So because Sin kind of characterized that, so we always wanted to play around him. So when we brought Dingo on, Dingo's a much more, like, fundamental and steady demo man, and it was kind of hard to bring him up to speed because we'd already developed that play style, so we kind of had to dial it back to try and play in his realm, but it was tough.
Yeah, I could see it in the gameplay, because it felt like there were times where, you know, there was, like, a certain disconnect of how you guys wanted to take aggressive fights into Witness, but I think that kind of came into its own after Metalworks, and then you guys became more cohesive on Snakewater. But traditionally, Snakewater is a map that you guys were more comfortable on. We saw it in the Fireside Cup, obviously, but now we're into Gully Wash. Like I said, you guys were down 3-1 at one point. So losing those 3 rounds in a row, I think the second round, or was it the third round you got, was a double spy play where Witness were pushing into second. I think earlier on, Shamu had a spy play, but Laz somehow shot a rocket from Launchpad. Like, he just predicted Shamu would decoke at that time. And then right after that, I think after that second last push, you guys went double spy with you and Paul Dog, got that cap. In that scenario where you're facing elimination and you're down 3-1, this is your first LAN. For those who don't know, this is Love's first LAN. Like, what was the composure within the team at that moment?
Well, it's actually pretty funny because before I joined the team, Crypt and Paul were actually, like, very steady goalie soldiers, and it just happened that this season we didn't play Goalie Wash that much. And the last time we had played Witness on Goalie Wash, I think we got 5-0 rolled pretty fast, so we had no expectations going into it. But when the Doghogs played in Season 12, I believe, it was actually pretty common that Crypt and Paul would go double spy into last. And in between maps, the entire season, basically, whenever we would play goalie, Paul would always bring up the idea of playing double spy, and we just never pulled it out because we never really played Goalie Wash. But I kind of realized if there was any time to pull it out, it would be then. So he came up spy on his own to try and cap last, and I just decided on my own to switch on to spy and go do it with him, and we both agreed to it.
And then, oh man, this is the most heartbreaking point of the match, and I watched it live. I remember it was Witness a second. So you get behind, you guys shove Baby Door, you sneak behind in the lobby, and then you do a skip jump in river, if I remember, onto skis and Artist. You get the drop, you kill Artist, drop skis. You guys have full Uber heading into last. And watching it unfold was crazy because it felt like you guys rushed it. And it was a common theme throughout the match, I feel like, from a producer and an observer's perspective, where you guys seem to be getting ahead of yourselves. It should have been a surefire win after that 2-for-1 trade onto the medic and demo from you, but you guys couldn't close it out. What was the initial impression on you guys rushing? Was it just like oh, we can win. We can do this right now. We can finish them off right now. Let's just Uber in, try to kill them all. What were the team comms like at that moment?
It's always our philosophy to play aggressive and just try and take momentum whenever we can. We did that a lot during the season, where if we always get that drop on their second, we'd opt to take the Uber to just get kills instantly and instead of trying to set up for a last push. It's kind of a blunder. I think we all made the wrong play, and the people who went to the point, yeah, I didn't see what was happening, but it was just very unfortunate. So it wasn't like, didn't feel like a rush moment, because we could definitely make it to last. It was just very unlucky in how we opted to take those kills once we popped in.
And with that, despite getting a backstab onto skis, you guys weren't able to convert that, and you guys went out in fourth despite a nail biter of a 3-map series against Witness. Overall, expectations of the team, did they match your expectations? Was there something more you were hoping for? And overall first LAN impressions?
It was great. It was very heartbreaking, and some of my teammates are still sad. I'm obviously still sad because, I'm glad to be here, but it's still in the back of my mind that we could have really won that. And, you hate to see it, but I don't know. It was so fun to play with them, and I'm glad we got to compete so well. Like, after playing Froyo and G6 those 2 separate times, some of us were kind of, like, clocked out, and we were like, okay, it's over. Like, even if we make third, we can't go to Grands. But we kind of brought it back for that match against Witness because, we still have the drive to compete. And even though a lot of people are watching the main stage, I'm glad we put on a good showing for those who are willing to watch us.
Yeah, 150 viewers, definitely not something to scoff at. But other than that, what is the future of loafe after this event?
I don't know, honestly. I have a lot on my plate. I got to go to school, and I want to try and work through it. I might try and play, but it'll be tough, and I still have to think about it. But for now, it was a lot of fun playing at LAN, and I'm glad that I got to finally get my highest placement invite, even though it wasn't an actual placement in top 3. It was still very fun.
And is there anybody that you would like to shout out before we top this off?
Shout out my team, GlobalClan. Shout out to those who went home from my team, Paul Dog and Shamu. Shout out to the people who will be here, and especially shout out to Sin Karma. I wish you were here. I love you. Shout out all my friends. Shout out all the people I've met here, and shout out you guys for all the stuff you've done.
Show up the photo of Sin Karma.
It's on my
Do we have a Sin Karma photo? We gotta see the Sin Karma photo. Okay, let's see if we can pull up the Sin Karma photo before the freaking. Well, actually, there was a Sin Karma photo from a resup, but here we go. Show it.
Here's a picture of my team. There's a new one coming out soon. I don't know if Sin's gonna be mad that I showed that to you guys, but
No, Sin's known on LAN. If only they would release the resup photos, but that's a discussion for another time. Thank you guys. We'll see you again. Stay tuned.